Alright, so I'm going to attempt to have this adult discussion with the lovely social media out there, my friends, whoever, acquaintances, people within my social network, or perhaps those who are blessed or whatever, or they get to see this. So, everybody is obviously against the whole Trump thing. I, from the get-go, didn't necessarily think that he was going to be that great for the job per se, beyond the economic standpoint. I did too think that maybe he would be a little bit, he would make people a little bit defensive, as he's successfully done that with the American population. So, here's my issue. Besides getting into the astrological thing, look at the cultural, international even, constructs of what's going on right now. So, without even giving you an exhausting history lesson, it is becoming more and more evident, or at least you cannot deny it anymore, that there's obviously some sort of hostility between Islamic ideation and those who follow it and the rest of the world, okay? I don't even have to argue that anymore. Okay, so that being said, there's, for whatever reason, I assume it's because since a lot of the, freedom fighters or whatever they're called, the Syrian rebels, whatever, basically, over there just running anarchy style, taking over, indigenous areas or abandoned countryside areas, they have now taken claim over the oil fields. That's big bucks. Everybody else in the world wants it. In fact, I'm still completely convinced that that's why we were even in that area in the first place. And that goes back to a history lesson, which I'm going to try to avoid doing that. So, obviously they've been caught by Russia by satellite surveillance photos, more or less, distributing and transporting massive commercial size amounts of that oil through Turkey into the Mediterranean Gulf. And then it's been seen distributed globally. So somebody's getting it. And they're not just giving it out of the kindness of their hearts. I mean, it's not as if they follow an ideology or a role model that really does things like that. So that would mean that they're making money. And what do you do with money if you have a significant amount of it? You put it in some bank. The World Bank is in Germany. Germany is the country out of all of them that's getting the most royally fucked right now by this migration. And I think that's why Merkel's hands are tied with that. Also, the Vatican Bank is the only bank that has, in the history, been known to launder black market money. Or make shafty, obviously be investing or holding on to assets that are obtained by criminal infractions, more or less. They would be essentially the pirate bank of history. So that explains the alliance between the Pope and the imams. It also explains the completely rolling over and subduing to all of the Muslim migrants in Germany. And we all just knew Sweden was pansies, and that was going to happen. So we know that's going on. And then another thing that we also know, regardless if you want to acknowledge it or not, there's more than just me out there. It's not just me, obviously, that is trying to inform all of you about this global issue going on. In fact, there are many organizations, and there are ex-Muslims, they call them apostates, that are trying their damnedest to warn all of you. Not for your own sake, but for their own, themselves. Because to be an apostate is to be executed via Sharia law, capital punishment. For apostates, questioning the Quran, making fun of the Prophet. That's why they get so upset when you do that. Because the whole fascist niche is their thing. Has been for a long time now. And that's also the gimmick behind their peace concept. That once the entire world conforms to Sharia law and submits to Allah, essentially becoming Islamic, there will be peace. And if you notice that too, that's the common denominator that a lot of the liberal progressive mindset, that at least the mutated concepts are going. And don't be so quick to just think that that's a trend, just with social psychology constructs. Your environment shapes who you are. If the trial that was put on by the United Nations, which is the biggest terrorism trial in the history of the world, had evidence that was submitted that confirmed that the Muslim Brotherhood, which is essentially like the United Nations of the Islamic world, have been orchestrating a thorough, executed plan, timeline, to infiltrate the United States. Because we are so anarchist-like and uncooperative. And because our Constitution and the way that the government was established with fail-safes to make sure that nobody could overthrow it. Well, that evidence for that plan that the Muslim Brotherhood has been trying to implement was published and essentially put into the works in 1991. So, coincidentally, you notice that there's no Muslims that are Republicans. They have now aligned themselves, obviously, with the more accepting, open-minded side of the political spectrum. And secretly, over time, has been psychologically conditioning them into becoming fascists themselves. And then pitting them against the rest of the collective citizens of the United States, regardless if we're talking about the actual citizens or we're talking about political identities or parties. So that's what they're attempting to do. They're attempting to cause all of these divides. And they're also siding with the side that likes bigger government, because that's essentially what Sharia law is. It's taking a socialist or a totalitarian government kind of construct and justifying it by religious doctrine. Yeah. You think Christians are bad for making commentary, not accepting you, and being friends with you and saying nice words? You will beg to differ. You'll be like, can we have the Christians back right before they throw you off a roof if you happen to be part of the LGBT community? Think about that. So, that goes back to what I was saying. I know you don't like Trump. And even if Trump's a racist, even if Trump's a sexist, even if Trump is part of the one percenters, if you understand the basics of economics, which I'm well aware that most of you don't, because if you actually think that Bernie Sanders' numbers work, or if you actually are shocked, which a lot of you are, why your rent and everything is going up so bad, coincidentally right after Obamacare fully kicked in financially, don't understand what inflation is. And yeah, I'm not even going to go into that because that could turn into a whole other thing. Obama, without even thinking about the next election, or even if we're going to survive to that, Obama's already screwed us over completely with that. And so, going back to that, Trump, he's one of our options. Hillary, is our other option. And Gary Johnson, I guess, is an option. He's a principal option. He's not really an option. It doesn't matter. No. Somebody else will step up from the House of Representatives or for the Democratic side, and vice versa for the Republican side, and still clinch the entire not nomination, but vote to become the next president before Gary Johnson will get enough votes. I'm sorry. Principle is not going to cut it this time. This is all or nothing. So speaking of all or nothing, Hillary is endorsed by Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is essentially the origin, where it all started from. The rebels, the Hezbollah. I know some of them, the factions come from Iran and all that, but essentially there was Wahhabi and the Shiites, the huge thing with that. Basically, Saudi Arabia is king over there, okay? Saudi Arabia is also the one that has a lot of the money, obviously, because we invested in them in the Cold War time. Then you take into account that about 93% of all the mosques that now exist in the United States are either owned or were created financially by Saudi Arabia. Also, the fact that all the Ivy League schools, especially the ones that are so best known for producing the best law students or law graduates, are now investing tons of money into those Ivy League schools. So there are scholarships for Muslim students to go. Why? If Sharia law is against law of any other kind, especially that is made of by man, why on earth would devout Muslims go to law school? What do people do with law degrees? They become lawyers? They're not going to defend any law but their own. That's evident with them trying to implement Sharia courts already in 7 other states as of right now. So they wouldn't become a lawyer. And again, a judge, kind of in the same retrospect, does the same thing that the lawyer does. They have to abide by the law, honor the law, and pass judgment using the law as their guide. Essentially, that would be the better of the two, I guess, if you were going to, have pick and choose. But what else do people usually do when they have law degrees? They go into government. What does government get to do? Make legislation. Make legislation to change things. To expand government. To implement rules, regulations, restrictions on people. Totally makes sense. Nobody pays attention to anything that goes on with legislation. Nothing. There's even a really awesome app too, and somebody can just ask me for it because I can't even remember the name of it because I have a couple, where you get notified about every single resolution and actual initiative or legislation, amendment or whatever, that gets passed, introduced, voted on, whatever. And they even have the other app where you can see who voted on them individually, and you have a direct click number to call their office in Congress to start shit with them when they vote on something really fucked up. I haven't actually used that yet. I'd be calling them all day long every day. And it continues to get worse and worse. So, I'm kind of lost here for a second because I actually already did this video and then I had to kind of redo this part. But, so basically, Hillary is heavily endorsed by Saudi Arabia. She intends to become the next Merkel. She wants to put the foot to the pedal and speed up this vetting process and get even more refugees into the country than Obama's already brought here. Which again, even in that construct, if you want to pretend for a second that they're actually not here to completely destroy us, they are destroying us indirectly without even intending to by becoming citizens and then therefore having no job and instantly being put on social services that are getting stretched way too thin. And then on top of that, now there's that huge bill to foot that essentially the rest of America has to foot the bill for Obamacare. Because the way Obamacare works is say there's 5 people. The reason why it works so well in Scandinavia area is because their economy was so well off. Okay, so you assume that 4 out of the 5 people can pay for insurance. That means, let's say, it costs, whatever. You just have to add 10% more to those 4 people's insurance to then pay for the 5th person. In theory, that sounds great. That sounds like it would work. Here's the problem. We've been in a recession. The economy's not doing good. And inflation has been a huge problem for quite some time, for decades now. So, in reality, 1 out of those 5 people can pay for insurance. So that means that instead of 10% being added on to that 1 person that can pay, that person now has to add 10% for each person that couldn't pay. That's 40%. That's almost half. Their insurance premium goes up by almost half. Because nobody can pay for their own. And when you add a 6th person to the equation, it's another 10% you have to tack on. That is half. 7 or 8 people, more than half. So the more refugees that we take in, the higher the premiums get. When the premiums go too high, the middleman, which is the insurance providers, they basically take out the plans. And then you reimburse them, because that's how insurance works. They go out of business, and they've been doing that already. So, regardless, one way or another, they're either destroying us economically, just the whole entire sociological construct by trying to destroy us, and or, they'll just physically start killing us. And again, I won't even get into what they do to women, because I've been, arguing about all of this until I'm blue in the face, and everybody thinks I'm either crazy, or think I'm stupid, or over-exaggerating, or I'm like Alex Jones wannabe or something. So I'll just wait till the evidence starts to surface itself. And it's been surfacing for a long time, but when it becomes something huge. And I'm sorry. Thanks to Twitter, and actually thanks to, the Target being a gay bar, about how dramatic they are. And I'm not trying to, be prejudiced, it's just a fact, okay? If you went and attacked a sorority house too, they would be so dramatic, okay? It's just the thing. Drama. That entire drama played out on Twitter last night. And no matter what the national narrative is, or the mainstream media, there's too much information that was already essentially released via first person for anybody to actually believe the news. So, everybody already knows. It's either people hating gays or whatever. And it's actually this fear-mongering, hating, people who are against gays or against, minorities, kind of cultural Marxism stuff, is actually going to now cave in on itself, because all these people are going to want to know, who did this? What is his problem? Who can we blame now that he's dead? Where are we going to start riots in front of? And, I was kind of concerned for the United States, essentially, with, I've been seeing, the refugees kind of completely annihilating everything over in Europe. But after I've seen some of the anti-Trump protest things, granted, some of them are Muslim in there, and they're probably teaching the ropes. But if hopefully they all don't get you by surprise and stab you in the back before you turn around, I think that it might be at least an interesting fight instead of just be a complete totality between the liberal fascists and the that sound weird liberal fascists and the Muslims. But yeah, vote Hillary, and we can be Germany. Vote Barry Johnson if for some reason he didn't get elected, and we'll be Sweden, something like that. Don't even get me started on Bernie. I'm not even gonna go into it. I just remember at one of his rallies, he went up and hugged a Muslim. A Jew was hugging a Muslim, telling them he's gonna protect them. If you don't know the history between the Jews and the Muslims, please go Google it. You will piss yourself, I assure you. That's so fucking funny. A Jew says they'll defend the Muslims that are scared of Islamophobia. Projection is ridiculous this year. God. I almost want to offer a free webinar of Psychology 101. Just so you all understand how bad it is. So bad. But yeah. So, if you'd like for the gays to live, vote Trump. If you'd like for, you to have any kind of economy left, period, or even healthcare for that matter, and not maybe get the plague or, one of these flesh-eating diseases or tuberculosis. Did you know that 1 in every 4 refugees that live in the state of Michigan test positive for tuberculosis? A lot of you liberals, come from those hippie new age people that thought that they didn't want to give their kids vaccines. Do you remember what used to happen? All the diseases that used to kill people way back then when there weren't any vaccinations? I think it's time to find out. We don't even have to bust the history book out for that one. So, if you don't stop the flow of refugees, regardless of why they're coming or not, if that's even going to still be an argument at this point, you might as well take the satisfaction away from the Muslims and kill yourselves, because you're going to die one way or another if you don't keep them out. So, that whole idiom with the vote for the lesser of two evils, you actually need to do that this time. And that's initially why I chose Trump in the first place. And I've just said, that's the last straw, that's the bottom line that I need, and I'll stand by him every step of the way. And because I'm the devil's advocate, the more people that go against him, the more I'm just like, yeah. And I have to antagonize the situation all the time. I'm just trying to help you to expand your consciousness. I'm just a shit about it. Sorry, guys.